Hello everyone, this is RaySpace and welcome back to Realism Overhaul Sandbox in Kerbal Space Program 1.12. In a previous video I had tested out a similar setup to this on Mars. This was meant to be a Mars lander combined with a small base, and I am going to try it out on Titan this time, but Titan is a very different moon. Mars is a planet, of course. Titan is a moon of Saturn, but it is a very different place, and we need to make a few changes. First of all, Titan, whether you can get oxygen from it sort of depends on subsurface water, and well, it's probably about the same difficulty as getting water on Mars, but one issue is that it's hard to target a particular location on Titan unless you come straight down at it, and for the most part we are not going to be coming straight down. We are going to be skimming through the atmosphere, and so targeting a particular place that might have the resources that we want is difficult. As a result, I'm not putting the drilling units, though we still have technically the ISRU unit built into the HAB. This means that we're carrying all the fuel with us instead of trying to refuel at the surface, which is probably safer anyway. But that's not as much of a problem as it was on Mars, because Mars has a thin atmosphere, so we had trouble slowing down. And if we tried to carry all the fuel down to the surface of Mars, then that would hinder us from slowing down on this heat shield area. However, for Titan, we don't have to worry about that. Titan's got a humongous thick atmosphere, in fact thicker than Earth's atmosphere, so it will slow us down, and it's not like we were going very fast in the first place. If we start in Titan orbit, we're going at about 1,600 meters per second, which is half the speed that we go around Mars, and whatever fraction that we go around Earth, about a fifth. So we are not coming in very fast. It will slow us down for sure, and we can carry as heavy a load down as we feel like, basically. And of course we do eventually have parachutes. We don't need to use the engines to land. The parachute will be just fine. So that is not a problem. We don't even have to open the doors, except we're using those as landing legs. Carrying the fuel down is fine. We don't have to worry about that. We did have to worry about it on Mars. That's why we had the drilling and used ISRU to replenish it. We still have the reactor. That's still there. And as far as the landing legs, somebody in the comments to the previous video said that, well, you wouldn't want to do this with the heat shield. Actually, it doesn't seem to be that much of a problem. The space shuttle had the doors for the landing gear, and Mars is not that hot. Entry into Mars, as long as you're not coming straight down, right? One thing that people don't understand about Mars is that when we've landed stuff on Mars so far, we've been coming in steep. And that's because NASA wanted to especially target a particular location, and we didn't have very good assets around Mars to help out with that. In our case, we don't have to worry about that. Mars had a huge patch of ore, and landing anywhere in that was fine, so I basically didn't have to land within an accuracy of 2 kilometers. I had hundreds of kilometers to work with, and so I didn't have to worry about coming in straight down on Mars, a steep entry, which would be a lot hotter and more difficult, and skimming through the atmosphere doesn't generate that much heat. In fact, we didn't lose a ablator at all, I don't think. So having these sorts of gaps on the heat shield is far less of a problem for this than it is for the space shuttle, which actually worked. So I don't have any concerns about the engineering of this at all. In fact, whether we need a ablator at all for a non-steep steep entry into Mars, I'm not sure. I think we could do with like heat tiles or something like that. In fact, the Maru Q, which is a different sort of Mars lander, has heat tiles instead. So anyway, that's a thing. We also do not need as many engines for Titan because its thick atmosphere poses its main problem on the way up. Thick atmosphere, really good coming down, really bad going up. And in this case, Titan's atmosphere has a surface pressure of 1.5 times that of Earth, but it has a surface density nearly 5 times that of Earth. And so the pressure affects the efficiency of the engine, but the density affects the drag. So we have way more drag. As a result, I'm not using the larger Lynx spacecraft, which carries 4 people. I'm using the smaller Lynx spacecraft, which carries 3, to try to reduce the the drag on it and the surface area. I already tried it with the large Lynx and that didn't work out, but that's why the fuel cells were floaty and I left them floaty to demonstrate they were in position for the large Lynx, not this Lynx. So I have to scooch them in like that. So we have the small Lynx now, which is more directly the size of the tank, and we have a single engine here. We do need more delta V, and in order to get that delta V from the same volume, actually we're not the same volume. I've lifted it up a little bit and moved these thrusters down. You might notice that it's poking out somewhat. So we've got more volume, but I needed even more delta V than that. So I souped up the engine. The problem is that we can't use the vacuum nozzle on Titan because Titan has the atmosphere, right? So it wouldn't have any effect at the surface. So we need to have a sea level engine here at Titan, and so a small nozzle, as you can see, and actually the ratio is even more than this would, even less than this would suggest. I think it's like 15. So the nozzle ratio is 15. The model's a little bit off from that. So we can't use hydrolox because we have a limited amount of volume here, and so we're using the tripropellant mixture to try to boost it a little bit, and we're leaning more towards the methane. It's 20% hydrogen in this case by mass. So you can sort of see that it's the fuel is 80% methane, 20% hydrogen by mass is what we're going with. And for that we get 330 seconds ISP, sea level, 360 vacuum. The chamber pressure is 1500 psi. So that's what I get out of it. 360 from a Methalox engine that is even throwing hydrogen in is not super, but we really wanted the tight, I mean, it's not super, but that's usually for something that's either staged combustion or it's something that operates in vacuum. When you're talking about something that is actually pretty good at sea level, this is not bad, and we really need the hydrogen in there to boost it. Otherwise, we wouldn't be getting we'd be getting about 330 vacuum, and that wouldn't be good. So we've boosted that, and the net result is that this tank gives us 4,790 meters per second. Now some of that goes because we need to deorbit as well. We're gonna have to use the engine to get ourselves into Titan's atmosphere. That is not the right node. This is the right node. Only one node actually decouples in there. So we can scooch that up to make sure that's like that. And that's why we still need the trapdoor. Even though we're not using this engine to ease our landing, we still need a trapdoor in the heat shield because we need to use this engine to deorbit ourselves after we're in Titan orbit. And we might have used this heat shield to capture into orbit as well, skimming the heights of Titan's atmosphere in order to slow down. So we could have used it to air brake as well. But I'm just going to cheat it into orbit for this test. So that is the idea. Oh, I'll leave those down for now. No, this deploy, not that deploy. Okay. So let me think about whether there's been other changes. So we've basically removed the ISRU. We do still have the ISRU mass in here. We've just removed the drills, but that might be because we want to strengthen the HAB. But I don't think that that's necessary for Titan. When you think about it, by our space standards, this has to have 1 atmosphere in. So because people have to breathe inside. So the pressure differential across its body is about 1 atmosphere in space, right? There's 0 atmosphere outside, 1 atmosphere inside. Now the surface of Titan has a pressure of 1.5 atmospheres. So at the surface of Titan, the pressure differential is actually only going to be half an atmosphere. So I don't think the HAB needs to be strengthened compared to what it needs to be on Mars. On Mars, we'll have 1 atmosphere inside, and we'll have about 100th of an atmosphere outside, basically 0. So the pressure differential across the body is still 1 atmosphere. And so I don't really think that needs to be changed, but if we decide that we need it to be more rigorous because of the pressure at Titan, then the extra mass that I've got because of the ISRU unit that we're not using can account for that. Alright, so let's do the test. There's 34 tons right now. And I don't think that I can change this too much more. We could just lengthen the tank or add engines. We'd have to make it substantially different from the way it is in order to adapt it any further. So this is about the limit where I would say if it needs to be adapted further, it probably ought to be a different design. So if this doesn't work right now, then we'll say maybe something else for Titan would be a better idea. We've already replaced the capsule, for heaven's sakes, and changed the tank. So we're not really using the same thing at all. But anyway, yeah, I'm guessing that ultimately we are going to need to do something different. The collider on the part is preventing me from getting to the fuel cell. The fuel cells are enough, and of course I removed the solar panels because they're useless at Titan. There we go. The fuel cells will be enough for the Lynx capsule, but not for the HAB. But the HAB has its own fuel cell. I'm not going to turn that on right now, but we could. I think we have enough power for the time being. That's the Titan Basonator I featured in a different video. Down there. Okay. You can see that with the heavy HAB, this only has 1,721 meters per second. Fortunately, it does not take too much to dip ourselves into Titan's atmosphere. We still have the radiators because we still intend to use the reactor that gets deployed off to the side in order to generate power on the surface of Titan. I would really like Titan ISRU to work out for us. But first of all, before I do this burn, first of all, when we scan for it, and I highlight ore, for instance, the atmosphere really makes it hard to see where the heck the ore is. You can see it's there, but if those patches were in daylight on this side, you wouldn't be able to see it at all. It's only because it's on the nighttime side, and if we increase the cutoff here, well, that patch is still pretty good. I mean, maybe we could do something there, but again, targeting a particular location is very difficult because of the thick atmosphere slowing us down. Well, it could be easier as long as we get the properties of the atmosphere correct. And then there's the question of whether we want to use hydrates instead, which I had done on Iapetus and on Enceladus. So that's the thing. In order to get around the fact that I couldn't see anything, I decided to put ScanSat in. But this still doesn't exactly look like the patches that we got on there. Maybe it's more accurate. But then if you take a look at the shapes of these blobs that indicate where the ore is, it seems much harder to actually hit one of these locations. So anyway, I'm glad that we're carrying the fuel with us in this case. Alright, so selling the fuel down. And ignition. We are already in the atmosphere of Titan. It's a big, big atmosphere, and this is why it's relatively easy to air brake, because it starts so high up and so thin that, yeah, and we're going so slow. It's a combination. The main struggle with Titan is going to be how we use resources at Titan. I contemplated a methane air scoop, so basically just like a air intake, but one that would provide methane, but trying to get that to only work at Titan so that people wouldn't cheat with it and get methane from all over the place. I mean, it need an atmosphere still, but it shouldn't work in all atmospheres is all I'm saying. That is a little bit trickier. it requires a plugin that I haven't really nailed yet. Alright, another problem with Titan, and this both on the way down and on the way up, is how long it takes. So I'm going to have to leave this going down for quite a long time. Probably I should have put in better time warp or whatever. People ask me what mods I have. I have a lot of different installs of KSP. Currently, I have 15 different installs of KSP. And they're all for special purposes. So, asking what mods I have, it'd be better if you customized your install for a particular purpose. The way you make new installs of KSP is that you just copy the KSP folder and then run from the executable file inside. So whatever folder for KSP you've got, you can just copy it. There's no key that gets put into the Windows registry, unlike with KSP2, which did have stuff elsewhere. KSP1 does not. So you can make as many different installs as you like with different mods. And so it's very difficult for me with so many different installs to just give you my mod list, especially because I don't think the mod list would help. Because I make these installs for very specific things. Like, I absolutely will have installed just for the space shuttle. I have an installed just for Starship. I have an installed just for airplanes. I have an installed just for Mars. I have an installed just for KSP Interstellar. I have an installed just for moon things. So it's like that. Then I can optimize the textures. Like, I could have really nice Mars textures for the one for Mars. Although that didn't work out very well. But stuff like that. So then I can load all the airplane parts in the airplane one. Well, as you can see, we're just below 200 kilometers now, and we've halved our speed already. And that speed is going down quickly. One thing we have to avoid is landing in liquid. We can see some batches of liquid there. There is liquid on Titan. So hopefully that's not going to happen. But it's always a risk because we can't target things too well right now. Even if I had trajectories, I can't see where the liquid is here. Now with ScanSat maybe, but it's not like on this view I can see one biome from another. If it turns out that we're over water, well, that's actually some pool of hydrocarbons probably, then we'll abort the landing at the last moment and then try to get back to orbit. It still functionally demonstrate that it works. But there's definitely some wet spots around. For now it says Midlands though. Well, there's definitely some liquid right there. Maybe we should just land on Iapetus. I mean, Titan, is Titan worth it? I guess it has the atmosphere to protect from radiation and everything. But the radiation isn't that strong out here. Not compared to closer to Saturn, apparently. Okay, finally at 8 kilometers in altitude over the surface. Okay, pre-deployment has happened. Obviously we don't have any drogue chutes, we don't need them. The atmosphere slows us down to 32 meters per second anyway. And it looks like we can make a touchdown. Okay, we're on the surface. There we go. I'm gonna save because things might go differently depending on exactly how fast I decide to go up. Okay. Right. Let's keep that. A little bit. Okay, go up. Up we go. And we don't want to go in such a way that we get too much drag. My limit's gonna be like 6 kilonewtons. You can see why I only used one engine, because, well, it's quite enough. You already have to throttle down so much. 55 meters per second it looks like. Well, maybe a little bit more than that. Now with the big links, I already know I was getting 10 at this speed. 10 to 12, so double the drag. So reducing it to this 3-person version is definitely a better idea. But is it good enough? Orbital velocity is just 1,600. The question is how much we lose in the atmosphere along the way. And again, the pressure, which affects the ISP, right now we're only at 320, is not too bad. That's 1.5 times Earth. But the density, which affects the drag, is 5 times that of Earth. You can sort of see that there. The atmospheric density of Earth is like 1.2. So we're at 4 times Earth right now. It's a trade-off because, of course, when we throttle down and go slower, we get less drag, but we stay longer in the atmosphere. So we would like to find a happy medium between that. You know, how much drag should we bear in order to make sure that we don't stay in the atmosphere too long? Trying to turn right now is pointless because the drag will make sure that our prograde vector ends up being horizontal really quickly. And then we'll plunge straight into the ground. Alright, at 20 kilometers, still keeping it to about 65 meters per second now. And we have 4,000 meters per second left of delta V. And again, your guess is as good as mine where it's going to be enough at this point. Really depends. At a certain point, I can't throttle down enough to limit the drag. We will have to accelerate. I swear that previously in my tests I was able to go faster while still limiting drag, even with the Lynx spacecraft. So I'm not super sure why we get so much drag now. I thought this sort of setup was able to go faster at this point, or even earlier at the surface, like to 80 meters per second. So, I mean, obviously it's not so efficient if we go slower. And I'm wondering, maybe the fuel cells are the cause? Or these thrusters sticking out? Just trying to figure out what's different. But we've still got 3,200 left here. We'll see if we can manage it. It was always going to be tight. I mean, I had already done previous testing, so I know how much we needed for that amount of drag, but this seems to be a little bit more drag. Okay, now we've gotten through the worst of it. You can see the drag is actually going down while our speed is going up, and even the drag coefficient is going up, and that's because the density must be going down very fast. Wish the density would go down faster. Earlier, much earlier. Alright, things are getting a bit tight here. We're past 100 kilometers. I still don't trust the atmosphere though. I will tilt a little bit. Alright, well, we ended up with a little bit less than I was expecting there. And we are not in orbit yet, but, well, the surface horizontal speed needs to be about 300 more. Hmm. I don't think I can eke out. Well, let's see. Let me bring it back. I don't want to go through the atmosphere again, but let me see in the VAB what we need to do here. Obviously, we're throttling down quite a lot. I mean, can I make it wider than it is? As much as I have faith in my own colliders, that's gonna be tight. Well, maybe if I conceded and use a different tank type. I've got this on the, basic normal tank. What if we went for the copper? Well, that didn't give us quite as much. The aluminum lithium, still not that great, actually. The differences between these tanks seems to have narrowed of late. I guess maybe the tank just isn't that heavy. Composite, none of the tanks seems to give a huge amount. This one was already 4,790, and even going composite gives us, and we can up the utilization, 4,994, so 200 more. I mean, it's progress. How much for magic? Magic will get us there, but let's not do magic. I think ultimately what I need to do is have a more streamlined capsule. It's possible that these thrusters can be down here. I wonder what would happen if we did that. Whether that would actually reduce how much drag we have. I don't know how it's getting so much drag, but sure. Let's just have these down here. They won't have as much influence in some respects. And I guess I'll just make this longer. I mean, that says 5,000 now. I really don't want to go through the atmosphere of Titan again. It takes a long time. That previous test was an hour. It's a non-trivial amount of time here. But okay. Okay, let me just make sure this closes up fine. Okay, nothing's poking out. Alright. Let's try it one more time. Maybe I'll put the fuel cells down below as well. I don't know how it reads dragged around here, but... Alright. Ultimately, the docking port's pretty bad for drag, but we need that. We probably would want a cover for it, but I wouldn't even know if I made a cover whether it would work to shield it and affect the drag. So, we'll see. I think there's a way to get close to the surface right from the start so I don't have to go through the whole process. Let me see. The reason to go through the whole deorbit process is because we do use some of the fuel to deorbit. So, well, maybe I'll cheat it after doing that burn. I'll cheat it after doing that burn. Okay, that's enough. Let's pack it in. Or, well, actually, if I do cheat it to a very low level, we don't need to pack it in. Let's see if that works. Set position. Titan. I don't know what latitude and longitude I want to go to. Let's see. Anything in daylight that isn't water or liquid. Pick target on map. Lowlands. Let's try Midlands. Okay. I don't want east to the ground. Forget that. Okay. Not retrograde. This way. Alright, well, we cut some of it short. Okay. Alright, let's make sure we're going up. We've got data, a little bit of throttle, and release. Well, let's see what speed we get up to before we hit 6 kilonewtons. That'll tell us whether I've reduced the drag. It doesn't seem like I've reduced the drag that much. So it's mainly going to be down to how much extra I've put in, which is sad. I did not want it to be that way. Okay, 10 kilometers. Well, that's not above the surface. Well, it is above the surface apparently. Very flat surface. Then we're at this point. At least we have more fuel, I think. Alright, we are at 50 kilometers altitude now, and we're at about 7.4 kilonewtons drag, 88 meters per second, 3,500 meters per second left. Oh no! I didn't mean to throttle down. Oh shoot! 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 No! I was trying to throttle down a little bit, but then it actually throttled down. Well, that loses us some, but maybe it reduced the drag a bit? I don't know. Okay. I don't know how bad that was. Okay, we're at 100 kilometers, 200 meters per second at 7.5 kilonewtons. That seems better. I'm gonna start leaning. Titan is definitely a place where we could do with engine with an extendable nozzle. And I don't mind even shutting off the engine for a bit and extending the nozzle if people want to do that, because, well, we accidentally shut off the engine anyway during this particular one. So maybe that will be fine. It's not like we're going up very fast. The key is to shut off the engine and extend the nozzle at a time when you're not going very fast anyway. So the whole loss of vertical speed is not going to be a big deal. Alright, well, the apoapsis is high enough, but we're still in the atmosphere for another 250 kilometers. I'm gonna cut it there. Whoops, I accidentally used another ignition. But yeah, since we're in the atmosphere, it's still going down. We'll see if I have to boost it or not. "250 meters per second is all it says I have, and I don't know if I have all of it. I can use the little thrusters to use a little bit more, but the thrusters only run on methane and oxygen, not the triple mix. Because doing that with the thrusters would be a little bit too much. Alright, we are now in space, and the apoapsis did not need a boost. Though we are cutting it a little bit close here. Well, we have to use the RCS to continue this, it looks like. So, a little bit too close. But part of it was because of the faux pas along the way up. Sure wouldn't be rendezvousing with anything very easily like this. I think overall a pointier shape might be necessary. I think our goal should be more of a wedge shape instead of the Lynx spacecraft, but then how are we going to fit people in so that they're comfortable is the question. You can't just make a shape, you have to make a shape that they can live in, basically, because, you know, everything to do with Titan is gonna take a while. Now, anyway, we are in orbit. We still have a little bit of RCS juice, but yeah. You can't make it too pointy, but you have to make it as pointy as possible. So what is the happy medium for that? Well, I'll think about that. But for now, this has been this experiment, and I'll say thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do press like. If you have any comments or suggestions, please leave them in the comment section below, and I'll see you next time.